Everybody, it's Jim Feist in Las Vegas and Joe Mac in New York. And Joe, lots of things going on in New York this week. You got some baseball games. I understand you went to a game last night. You got a baseball game today in the city. And you got Belmont coming up this weekend. And, of course, every day you have Giuliani and Trump. And that's all New York kind of based stuff. And Washington, of course. But good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Jim. Yes, lots happening. You touched on the horse racing first, and it's funny, I was just looking at some of the weather forecasts, and I see it right now, 60 to 70% chance of rain Saturday afternoon, and I guess I'm figuring like a lot of other people, and I'm not a horse racing guy for the most part, but it's amazing that they had a deluge in the Kentucky Derby, a swampy, wet track at Pimlico for the Preakness, and now the odds are you're going to have a rainy, wet track at Belmont. So the Triple Crown, if Justify is going to win it, he's going to have to be the mother of all time, I guess, to get it done.
Well, he's by far the best horse, but, it's a grueling grind. He's had a lot of races in a very short period of time, and it's kind of like a water sport this year. If they get rain on all three races, that's pretty incredible. I understand Baffert threw out the first pitch?
Yes, he did. Yes, I went to the game, the Met game last night. The plummeting Mets and the worst team in baseball, Orioles, so it's a good game to go to. And Bob Baffert threw out the first pitch, threw a strike. They had the drawing to the Belmont inside Citi Field, which I found interesting, but I guess it was a different kind of touch. Instead of doing it at Belmont or maybe at some Midtown Manhattan hotel or restaurant, they had it at Citi Field, and I know Baffert, I saw the little highlight clip, he got a chuckle out of the fact that Justify, his horse, drew the number one post, and he told the reporter on the scene, he said, they should just put all my big races to the number one spot. He said, I always seem to get the inside post. He didn't seem too disturbed by it, but when pressed on it, he admitted he'd rather be sitting 4 or 5 more in the middle, but hey, we'll see. I know I've been reading some stuff, and already there's been some comparisons to the year that Smarty Jones got beat out, and had to run, against really kind of a fresh field, and that's happening here in the Belmont with Justify. When you really, as you know, you look at the other horses in this race. I mean, the other guys, except for 1 or 2, weren't even around for either of the other races. So he's going to have to face a fresh field, third race in whatever it is, 6 weeks here, and on a likely wet track. You wonder if he's going to have the stamina of this horse to make it all the way. Again, I'm not the biggest horse racing person. I think it's a little much to ask of a horse to run this race when he's not fresh against fresher competition. So if you had to put the proverbial sun to my head, I don't, as good as he is, and I see a 4 to 5 price right now, I don't know, something tells me he's not going to get to the finish line first.
Well, it's been the case for most years, and the horses that have a chance at the Triple Crown have, a lot of them have faded a lot more, have failed to do it because of the fatigue factor mostly, and they do run up against fresh horses. So that's the issue, and that's where the horse players have to make a decision as to what's going to happen. I have somebody that picks our horses out here, and Hank Goldberg, and I'll wait for him to come up with his plays because he's usually right. Basketball, we got basketball tonight. We've got the Cavs against the Warriors, Game 3. Gosh only knows if the support cast for LeBron will show up. If they do, they got a chance because they did play 3 quarters the other day, very competitively. The last quarter they fell apart, and of course in the first game they played the whole game very competitively, but they fell apart in the overtime. So it hasn't been a total disaster, but they need to get some help. I guess they're going to play Hood tonight for Cavs. They're going to play him a little bit. J.R. Smith, of course, has disappeared except for his bonehead move at the end of 1. It's going to be. This is not. It's not a fair game actually. I mean, the Warriors just have too much talent. It really comes down to whether or not the Cavs can win 1 or even 2 games. But a lot of people don't think they can.
Right. I guess the conventional thinking, Jim, is that if the Cavs are going to win any game, it's going to be tonight. They're a 4-point home dog. I'll tell you what, though, I looked it up here in the playoffs. Doesn't tell you maybe a whole lot, but when the Cavs come off a straight-up loss, and they've actually obviously come off back-to-back straight-up losses, but they actually have a 3-4 spread record coming off a playoff loss, which is not a great sign because when you think about it, you know, if you're really, a high-level team, I don't want to say they're not a high-level team, but let's face it, they really have to go to the mat to beat the Celtics, of course, which they showed a lot of guts, and LeBron had one of the great Game 7s. But, you know, to me, if you're a top-level championship-type team and you lose a playoff game, more often than not, you're going to come back and play your A-plus game the next time out. And the Cavs, if you bet, you put $100 on the Cavs coming off a playoff loss, you're down some money here in this postseason. I think they're going to play a quality game tonight. I agree with what you said. There's got to be some help from this so-called supporting cast. I mean, George Hill, 15 points, looks good, but then you say, hey, you need a little bit more. And the guys, as you pointed out, I mean, J.R. Smith's Game 1 bonehead move has been obviously well documented, and they made fun of him. I mean, I didn't love the fact that the Warrior fans were doing it, BP chants. I mean, such sarcasm, that's fine. But, I mean, what are you going to do? But the thing is, he would have shown me something if he would have come out in Game 2, been a little more aggressive, obviously shot the ball better, just been a factor. He was a negative for him there. I think, LeBron just doesn't have enough guys that he can count on. I mean, Kevin Love has had his moments, but when you think about it, Jim, he's 4 of 16 from beyond the three-point arc in this series. I mean, he hit a big one at the end of Game 1 after going over his first 7. But, I mean, if you're going to be taking that many threes from your Kevin Love, you've got to shoot a higher percentage of 25%. I just don't know if they have enough of the bodies and stuff to win more than one game, I guess is what I'm getting at. I could see them winning tonight. If they lose tonight, especially if they lose a close one, more often than not, teams just mail it in and get swept and it's over and done with. But you're right, it's not a fair fight. I mean, when you really think about it, and it's been pointed out, I mean, it's not me coming up with anything genius. You've heard it all along. They've got Durant, they've got Curry, they've got Thompson. Those guys, one of them could have a bad game or a mediocre game, and they still can win by double figures and cover 11.5-point numbers. They have a margin of error that's much more pronounced than the Cavs do. I mean, look, when you think about it, LeBron scores 51 points, plays the game of his life, and with the referees calls against them and whatnot, they still lost. I mean, so how the heck are they going to win otherwise? They really need, to me, some combination of Hill, J.R. Smith, maybe even Nance, who's played well on the board, but he's missed some big free throws, and he's not been an offensive factor. They need that trio, let's say, to go for about 50, 55 points. And that may sound unreasonable, but, I mean, if you can get Hill to get 20 and 15 each from the other guys, a couple of big threes, they can get this. They can get a win tonight and, make this really a more interesting series. Obviously, no one in their right mind really thinks Cleveland can win 4 out of 5. I remember the old Yankee days, I'm saying old, like in the 90s, when the Yankees lost the first 2 games of the World Series to the Braves, and Joe Torre, who was as calm as he could be, told the media, told his team, guys, win 1 game. The whole momentum turns around there. Win 1 game, let's see how the series goes. Well, who knew that Yankee team was going to win the next 4 and beat the Braves back in '96? Again, I'm not saying the Cavs are going to do that, but right now, I know it's a cliche and it's very trite to say, just win 1 game. Let's see what happens. Win 1 game, and there'll be a lot of juice for Game 4. You lose tonight, even if you lose a close one, not many hardcore, outside of hardcore hoop fans, they're not going to be tuning in for Game 4. They know it's over by then. So let's see. I think Cleveland played well. You made a good point. They were competitive the other night in Game 2. You know what, Jim? I don't think they were, fully engaged in that game. I mean, I thought LeBron personally should have had more than 13 assists. They missed a lot of shots when he set them up for wide and jumpers. But I guess they feel like they were totally into it. Yes, they still were within 6 points late in the third quarter. So let's see what they do. I want to see them give their 100% game tonight and see if that's good enough to win. And if it is, we got a different series, at least a different feel to this whole NBA Finals.
Yeah, you make a lot of great points there. LeBron, I question how much he has left in the tank from psychologically. I mean, he's done a lot, and these guys have failed him for the most part. Like you said, the assists, he should have had a lot more. I mean, it's been bad. Does he still believe? Does he still believe? And we're going to know that in a few hours when we watch this. I don't know what to say about it. We all know that the Warriors are not going to lose this series. At some point, Iguodala is going to come back. That might be tonight. It might be the next game. They'll get stronger. It's a mismatch. It was from the beginning. That's why we all decided to go with the Warriors from the get-go. But anyway, we got the hockey tomorrow night, which has been another disaster for the Knights. I mean, they got outscored. At one point, they were outscored 10-2 over a certain stretch there, and it changed a little bit at the end of the other game. But that 6-2 score, I mean, they just got annihilated. The Caps just looked like a better hockey team.
You know what? The Caps have looked to me like a team that has just gotten better as the playoffs have gone on. Obviously, they dug themselves out of an 0-2 hole in that last round. They look like a team that's peaking. I mean, let's face it. The other night they get out to the 3-0 lead at the end of the first period. I don't care how good you are, and Vegas has been a good team and a higher scoring team, obviously, than what they've shown in this series. But they kind of didn't have a chance after that. At 3-0, Vegas. They started, putting a little more pressure on or whatever, but Washington just seems the superior team, and they got everybody clicking. It's not like it's all kind of on Ovechkin. I mean, they've got a lot of guys clicking. They had a 4-assist guy the other day. I didn't realize it. There's only been 3 or 4 of those in NHL Finals Stanley Cup history, guys that had 4 assists in a game. And they're flying right now. I mean, they look like they could close it out here in Vegas. I know they're playing with house money here, but you know the deal too. You don't want to fool around here. I mean, it's a game that people are going to expect Vegas to come out, win, hope this series to go back to D.C. But right now, I wouldn't go against Washington. They're at a peak condition. Their goalie is playing top-flight hockey, and they're doing it all right. I mean, some of their defensive play. And you know what? We're all seeing a lot, which I've seen over the years with teams that win the Stanley Cup. Guys, just regular guys, third-line guys, or third group of defensemen guys, diving and blocking shots, deflecting pucks. All those little things. I mean, I used to see it all the way back in the 80s when we got this. They would do all those little things, and sure enough, sooner or later, blocking a shot in front, or putting your body in front of help out the goalie right in the crease, something like that. I mean, they make all those plays, and everyone's making it. And actually, we talked about it the other day, Jim, and one of the other things, when Vegas had a 2-man advantage for 1:09 and didn't score, you can make the point that the series kind of turned around after that. Washington just got better, and, let's face it, this trapping defense that they play, which I don't always fully understand, but it's really clogged up things for the Knights. And listen, they've not been a very good offensive team in this series since game 1.
Yeah, the people I talk to that know hockey well, they just everything that the Caps are doing is superior at this point, and it's showing up on the scoreboard. This is kind of like the Cavs game. This would be the game that the Knights should win. The Caps are coming off 2 high emotional home games, and the one they won 3 in a row. So I mean, it's tough to beat anybody 4 in a row. And this would be the one game where the prideful Knights come back and win a game. I wouldn't bet this game other than the Knights. I'm not saying I will, but then if the Knights do win, it goes back for game 5 to Washington. Then the pressure then becomes on Washington because they don't want to get the other team to get momentum and have to go back home again. So it's interesting how that works. You're up 3-1. But if you lose this game, then the pressure's back on you not to lose at home, which is very, So it's a strange situation. I'm surprised that it's this imbalanced. I thought it would be much more competitive, but really the Caps have really outskated them, outshot them, outdefended them. They win all the face-offs, the power plays. They do better in those. Everything about the Caps right now look better to me. So.
But you know what's funny, Jim, about the Caps season? They're just like an overview. There's been many times. I mean, heck, they haven't been in the finals in 20 years, right? It was 1998 that they were in the finals last time. Ovechkin has been there, I believe, 9 years or 10 years. They've never been to the finals until this year. I have seen them in past years. They had, I always thought, better teams. I can't pinpoint what years, but there were a few years there where the Caps either had the most points in the league or most points in the Eastern Conference side, and you always thought they were ready to win it all, and they never did it. This year, I didn't hear anybody talking about the Caps to win it. I heard people saying Tampa Bay. I heard people saying out west, Winnipeg, and all of a sudden it's the Caps. Funny, it happens that way in sports sometimes with teams get kind of overlooked, who are good for, say, year after year, and then 1 year comes along and nobody says anything about them. And then all of a sudden they're right here. And as I said, there's nothing like it, and we've seen it over the years, Jim, whether it's NCAA tournament or NBA playoffs or whatever, or even the NFL playoffs. Sometimes teams hit their stride at exactly the right time, and they peak, and they really play either their best ball or in hockey. I mean, they play much. For the last 2.5 games, the Capitals, as you said, they've been the superior team, and they're playing, they should play loosey-goosey here in Game 5, but as you say, you lose that game, then you're the one feeling the sweaty palms in Game 6 back at home, because you know what could be ahead, a Game 7 in Las Vegas, and let's face it, that home crowd and that whole environment has really been a big positive all year for the Knights, and so I'm sure the Caps are going to go in here. I think they're going to play with absolutely no pressure, and I think they're going to probably play a pretty decent game here. And then they might start questioning themselves. They just haven't been able to put the puck in the net. They've had some chances, and it just has been a very quiet last couple of games in terms of getting to the net. So we'll see what happens. But it's just funny because I could have sworn I talked to a buddy who we picked before the playoff last years. We decide who we think is going to win it. And I probably picked the Capitals to win it 3 times in about the last 7 years, and they never even, would get to the Eastern Finals. And now this year, when I thought Tampa Bay was going to win the whole thing, boom, it's Washington on the threshold of, really, I know hockey is considered the fourth biggest sport, but this is a big, not only Vegas being a monstrous story, obviously, as an expansion team getting this far, but the Caps, if they win it all, that's a monstrous story. And it's funny how it almost, they almost, if they win, they almost put a little pressure on their baseball guys over there with the Nationals who've been in the same boat. Very close for years and years, never got it done. So, anyway, we'll see how it goes.
Think about the Nationals. They have a pitcher there. Scherzer is just absolutely incredible what he's doing this year.
He's unbelievable. I mean, how about his start last night? He had 1 inning, 9 pitches.
I know.
I didn't realize they had a name for it. They call it the immaculate inning. I guess if you strike out the sign on 9 pitches, you gotta have a name for it. So they called it the immaculate inning. I said, geez, I've been watching baseball for 50 years. I don't know. I can count on 2 fingers maybe how many times I've seen somebody do it. Maybe Dwight Gooden back in the 80s for the Mets. I don't know. But Charlie, he's unbelievable, sure. He's crazy.
Well,
I mean, you look at the prices.
I wonder how many times a guy like Sandy Koufax did that, or a Drysdale, or a Bob Gibson, or even an Elroy Feist, which is this is going back a long time. The only relief pitcher ever had a 19-1 record, which was kind of incredible. And then you got some of those Dodger pitchers, and then you had Feller and people like that. There had to be more immaculate innings that I never thought about it before. I heard it. I mean, I've never heard that term until this morning.
Right. No, I'm with you. And how about the fact that the other day when it did start, he was a big part of an extra inning win. He scored the winning run or something. I mean, incredible play. In fact, I watched 2 minutes of the Dan Patrick show earlier in the day, and the question was if he was starting a baseball team and just for the next 5 years, would you take Mike Trout or would you take Max Scherzer?
Oh,
You know what?
Oh boy.
I don't. Really, I mean, as great as Trout is, and as always MVP or second in the MVP, you say to yourself, has it really, for all the talk of Kershaw in the last few years and some other guys, has there been anyone more consistent than Scherzer? Now, the only thing you could say is he hasn't always gotten to the finish line in these postseason games. I mean, he got a lot of criticism a couple of years ago coming out after five of the third innings. But, I mean, who's been better than him? Who's been an overall better baseball player than Max Scherzer the last couple of years? I don't think you can find one.
Well, the only one I could think of, and it's not really comparable right now because of the statistics that he's throwing up there, would be Verlander.
Well, you're right. I mean, but you almost have to look at Jim when Verlander came to the Astros because his year and change from here, he wasn't nearly that outstanding. As an Astro, you're right. I mean, he's been lights out. The numbers are crazy. The winning percentage is crazy. And let's face it, he's the reason they went to the World Series and not the Yankees last year. That's all there is to it. Sometimes there's one pitcher, one player that carries the load, and he did it. But you're right with him. But again, as a Tiger last year, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, I don't think he was dominant. I think he was solid, but not dominant. But as an Astro, you're right. You could put him right up there what Scherzer's done for the last few years.
Speaking of the Astros, and we're running long, so we've got to cut it short soon, but they have real issues with that bullpen. That bullpen is a disaster.
It's a problem area. I mean, let's face it. Look at how they won the World Series last year. They really went to starting pitchers like Charlie Morton to bail them out. They didn't have confidence in the closer Giles. The other kid, Davinsky, who's a reliever, but wouldn't want life on the line with him right now either. I don't think it's any secret, Jim. They've got to make some kind of move for a reliever. Actually, one of the guy that closed out the game that I went to, the Orioles last night, Block. I think he might be a guy they think of. The question is, do they do what the Cubs did a couple of years ago? The Cubs knew when they traded Gleyber Torres to the Yankees for Chapman, it was a total rental deal. But the Cubs knew, hey, if we were going to win it, we have to get a top-flight closer. They got him. They got their World Series. It was a sweat job, but they got it. And now Gleyber Torres, let me tell you, he's going to be one of the top 5 players in baseball for the next 10 years. The kid's incredible. Do the Astros do the same thing? Do they dip into their farm system, which is pretty stocked still? Do they trade a guy that's like a can't miss for a guy that they think is the answer for their bullpen? It's going to be the $64,000 question between now and July 31st. Now, I think they'll move sooner rather than later, but they know there's going to be competition for other closers. They know there's a few other good teams out there, the Indians being one of them that's had a lot of bullpen issues. These teams are going to be looking to get, a closer from, the Orioles or Texas Rangers or one of these teams that are out of it. I mean, look at how last week Seattle moved on it, and they got the kid Colomé from Tampa. So they kind of, lots of times don't see these trades happen until mid to late July, obviously, when you post it to the deadline. I think you're going to see some teams act quicker, more swiftly here, and I think the Astros are one of them. I think they're going to get a closer in the next 2 to 3 weeks, but do they give up, an A-plus prospect for the minors? That's the question.
Good question. Good points, Joe. Thank you very much for today. We're running long. We'll do this again probably the beginning of next week. We'll have we'll have a wrap-up of all this NHL, NBA stuff, and we'll start talking about some football, too. So thank you very much, Joe. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you, Jim. Have a great one.
You too.